It is Monday, November 10th, and you are watching the Sick Podcast. Trust the process. Spoiler alert, folks, it's going to be a positive show. The Habs are tied for first in the Eastern Conference with Carolina and New Jersey. Cole Caulfield is second in the NHL for goals. And on top of that, the Habs have three of the best rookies in the NHL. But wait, we're not done. They have guys in the Rocket that are crushing it and players outside of the organization who are doing really well. Like I said, it's going to be a positive show. It's going to be a fun show. We're going to get to a little fantasy segment. Of course, we're going to get as well to our mailbag question of the day. Hope you're tuning in, folks, because it's going to be a good one. It all starts right here, right now.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. Trust the process. The sickest NHL prospect podcast with Snake and Shayne.
With the 5th overall selection in the 2024 NHL Draft, the Montreal Canadiens are proud to select Ivan Demidov.
It's gonna be sick.
That's right, producer Shayne here, joined as always by my co-host Simon the Snake Boisvert. Snake, how are we feeling today?
Hey, not too bad. And you, Shayne?
Not bad. I'm staying inside. Obviously, it's disgusting right now in the Montreal area. Hopefully, folks are listening to what we've been saying on this show, Snake. Unfortunately, I've not changed my winter tires yet. I must admit, I've not been a good citizen. I will do it this weekend, though. I promise. But folks, I mean, if you haven't done it yet, don't worry. We got you, okay? Because we partnered with Point S and GT Radio to offer you this pretty dang good offer, okay? Listen to this. Point S and GT Radio are offering you the chance to win a new set of GT Radio winter tires plus free installation at any Point S garage. That is a total value of $1,000. Only two things to do in order to participate. First, you got to go to the Sick Podcast Instagram and like and comment on the pinned post. After that, make sure you're following the Sick Podcast and Point S on Instagram, and you are entered. Okay, the contest ends November 16th. Point S is your trusted garage for complete vehicle care. Okay. Snake, today we're focusing on Habs prospects, maybe a little outside prospects as well, but let's start with the three rookies on the current Canadiens roster, that being Ivan Demidov, who is, by the way, first in points in all rookies and assists, okay? Oliver Kapanen, who is tied for first in goals among rookies, and Jakub Dobeš, who is 6-0-1 with a 225 goals against and a 920 save percentage. The kids are all right, Snake. They're all right.
Yeah, I mean, the Canadiens are the youngest team in the league and one of the best, which is usually quite rare because very young teams have a tendency to, finish close to last place, but then they rise gradually. And the Habs rose very, very quickly last year and this year. So it's kind of, I would say they're kind of ahead of schedule when you think about it.
Definitely.
Yeah. They're probably like a year ahead of schedule. Because if you had told me, if you had asked me 2 years ago, I would have said that what they did last year, they would do this year. And what they're doing now, they would do next year. So you know that we've compared them sometimes to the Chicago Blackhawks of the late 2000s.
Yeah,
they kind of rose very quickly once they got the Kane and Tapes, and I don't know if the Habs are going to win the cup as quickly as the Hawks did, but look, the way the Eastern Conference is setting up to be in the next few years. I think the road is, I wouldn't say it's clear, but it's wide open.
Yeah, no, that's it. A lot of the young, promising rebuilding teams, Snake, are located out west. You think Anaheim. I mean, Anaheim, what a story this year.
And the Sharks?
Oh my God, the Sharks! The Sharks are scary, man. They are scary. Look, they're far from a perfect team,
No.
but they've surpassed my expectations. Like they started off really bad, but
Oh yeah.
they're kind of rolling right now. And of course, I mean, Celebrini's he's incredible. But you know, you got the Sharks, you got the Blackhawks. Like these young up and coming teams are all out west.
Utah, Anaheim. Yeah.
I mean, you know, out east, it's like, okay, well, what about Columbus, Ottawa, Detroit, Philly? Like, you
Yeah.
don't really know. The Habs have a great window right now. And I mean, like you said, Snake, I think they're ahead of schedule. Now, of course, regression is always possible.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't come as a surprise if it does come.
Mm-hmm.
But to see the consistency so far this year, right, among a young team, but also among those three rookies that I just named, is remarkable. Like
Yeah.
that is, you know, very rare territory that we're going in. And the craziest part is that they're just scratching the surface and there are more players coming. I mean,
Yeah.
we're going to talk about a few of them, but like this is just the beginning. That's what's crazy about this team, Snake.
Yeah, because there are older players whose contract is going to expire within the next year or two.
Mhm.
Like, you know, the Gallaghers, the Andersons, but no worries. I mean, the Habs have prospects to fill out the spots, and they will also have cap space. Their cap situation is very, very, very good if you consider that their top line is signed for what, 23 something $million for at least 5 years. So 23 million for a top line in this day and age, and especially with the cap rising, is nothing. Because more and more stars are going to get 11, 12, 13, 14 million dollars. Well, Kaprizov got 17, but you know what I mean. A lot of these guys, Logan Cooley got 10 million. That's 2.5 more than Slavkovsky, who's the same age.
Yeah.
Cutter Gauthier, how much is he going to get?
Oh,
this is all very nice for Anaheim right now. But Cutter Gauthier, Leo Carlson.
Oh my God, yeah.
They're probably close to $10 million players according to the market right now.
Mm-hmm.
And perhaps Anaheim's mistake was to, unless the agents didn't want to, but was to not re-sign these guys last summer when they could. Think about it, because Kent Hughes, he was quick to sign Juraj Slavkovsky to an extension. Of course, is he taking a risk? Yeah, of course he's taking a risk. But now at 7.6, even if Slavkovsky slightly underperforms, is because I think we don't know if Slavkovsky is going to be the best player of the 2022 draft. But one thing is sure, he's going to be a good one. And at 7.6, even if he's not the top player, well, who cares? He's at 7.6 and the other ones get 10.
Very digestible. Mm-hmm.
And like I say, you can never separate a player from his contract not right now. You know, you look at Josh Henderson, if he were earning like 1.5, we'd all say, oh, what a great bottom six player. Yeah, bargain. Exactly. But at 5.5, out of 5.5 cap hit, he's been he's been a burden on a salary cap sheet over the last few years.
Yeah.
Even if he had a good season last year.
Well, listen, that is an underrated aspect of a proper rebuild, is the rebuild of the cap structure as well, and setting it up for success. That's something that Kent Hughes, Jeff Gorton, and John Sedgwick have done beautifully. Really, no gripes there. Snake, I want to go back a little bit to the three rookies on the Habs now: Demidov, Kapanen, and Dobesh. We know that the Calder race this year is going to be very tight. There are some fantastic contenders. Obviously, Matthew Schaefer is he's incredible. Beckett Seneca's having a great year again in Anaheim. Alexander Nikishin, not to be underestimated. I mean, there are some really good candidates. But the fact that the Habs have three, including the leading point getter, I mean, could they go back-to-back for the first time since... Was it the Buffalo Sabres in the 60s that went back-to-back, Calder? I don't remember when. It's been a while.
It's been a long time since two players got it back-to-back. Look, I think when it's all said and done, I love Seneca. I think there are some good defensemen out there, but I think it's going to be between Demidov and Schaefer. like most people figured it was going to be after a couple of weeks. Kapanen, he has 6 goals, but 20 shots. That's a 30% percentage. Yeah. I mean, this is not sustainable, but Seneca is at 24%. That's not sustainable either. I mean, he's excellent, but I mean, the top players are going to get like what? 15%, 16% usually. And the league average is like what? 10, 11% rate of success, between 9 and 11%, I think, because if you look at the save percentages, most goalies are around 900. So, look, I think Kapanen, look, he's playing with Demidov. It does help to get points. I think as long as he plays with Demidov, I guess he's going to get his points. He's had some quiet games, but he's had last 2 games. He scored. He had a goal and an assist on Saturday. And it depends on what the Habs do on the trade market. Because obviously, if the Habs go on the trade market, we would assume that it would be for a middle of the lineup center. A guy who can play either number 2 or number 3. And that probably would bring Kapanen down to the third line. And therefore, his production could slow down. But as long as he's with Demidov, he might stay in the top 6, 7 rookies. I think there's a lot of defensemen out there, like you said. You know, Schaefer, Zeev Bouillon, Lev Shunov, Nikki Shin. And as for the forwards, I don't know if you want to get to the disappointments or
we'll transition into that. Yeah, we can transition into that because listen, this crop of prospects, we knew this rookie class was going to be really, really good, but there are a few that we expected maybe a little more out of. So I think it's a perfect time to introduce our new tune-up segment.
The tune-up, presented by Point S and GT Radio.
Okay, so these players are players that, again, are good. They might just need a little bit of a tune-up, right? So which rookies this year, Snake, are maybe a little underwhelming in your estimate that you maybe expected a little more out of?
Well, one guy that I had in my top 3 who started off very well the first week, and then his time on ice went down. And when I watched him play, I was not as impressed as I was last year. And even when he was in the NCAA, is Sam Renzel of the Chicago Blackhawks. He only has 3 points in 16 games. He started off on the top power play unit. I'm a little bit disappointed. I thought he was going to be much better. So that's one guy. I think maybe he's trying to do too much. And also Lev Shunov is part of the lineup now. He's kind of taking over. And whether players like it or not, or fans like it or not, a team is always going to give a better chance to a guy who's drafted number 2 than a guy who's drafted number 25. Okay, I know that in the end, your rank of selection doesn't matter because, you know, we have 7-round picks who, like Emmett Finney, you know, in Detroit, one of probably the biggest surprise this year, who's going to play. But at first, I think the Hawks, the way they have their hierarchy set up, is probably Lev Shunov at number 1. And he's been okay. He's had a good season so far. So that's one guy who I think was disappointing. Another one who I think was disappointing, not to me, but I think to a lot of fans in Toronto, is Easton Cowan. Cowan was highly touted, Memorial Cup guy in London. He was sort of NHL ready in the sense that he had spent four years in juniors, but they sent him down at some point. I don't know if they brought him back up, but they sent him down to the Marlies.
Yeah. Has it like his role hasn't really been consistent? He's been up and down, changing lines.
Well, the problem with Cowan is that I think some perceived him as some offensive guy because of what he did in junior hockey. Yeah. I think he's a bottom 6 player in the NHL, a good bottom 6 player, but a bottom 6 player nonetheless. So if you're expecting him to be paired up with Matthews or Nylander, or then you're going to be a little bit disappointed. So I think that's one guy probably disappointed some fans out there. Another one who I think was highly touted, another one that, I love Rinzel, but I wasn't crazy about. I thought Cowan was overhyped. And another one who I thought was overhyped was Isaac Howard in Edmonton.
Yeah.
This is a guy who was mentioned. Yeah, 3 points. This is a guy who was mentioned as a potential McDavid partner. And he did well.
Hobie Baker winner.
Pardon me? Hobie Baker winner.
I mean,
he was traded by Tampa because I think they didn't want to sign over there. They traded him to Edmonton, and now all of a sudden I never saw Isaac Howard as a great offensive player. I don't think he will be. So to me, that's another bottom six player who was probably overhyped. And another one I would say who I don't know if I could call him a disappointment because of his age, but maybe Berkeley Catton did not produce. I like him on the power play. I think he does a good job. But the problem with Berkeley Catton is that I think he is not ready for full-time duty in the NHL. Yeah. Problem is he's 19.
Another one of those, eh?
Yeah, he's a tweener who should have been in the American Hockey League but cannot. But guys like him will be eligible next year to play in the AHL. I think ideally this is what Seattle would have done.
Yeah.
They would have sent him to Coachella Valley for 1 year or at least half a year of seasoning, and then take it from there. So I would say he's a minor disappointment because it's hard to call a 19-year-old a disappointment. Mm-hmm. When you go with rookies, it's more like when they're 20, 21, and you expect a lot from them, like Isaac Howard, for instance, maybe Easton Cowan, but it's hard to find a 19-year-old. Mm-hmm. So what they need to do, basically, just gain experience. I think in terms of Catton, just gain experience. Go to the American Hockey League and score. Are they going to release him for the World Juniors? Because remember, there are 9 Canadian players eligible for the World Juniors still in the NHL. Forget about Macklin Celebrini, but there's 8 others who I think some of them...
Schaefer's not going.
But I think some of them will. We don't know about Michael Misa. We don't know about Berkeley Catton. It's going to be a decision that's going to be made probably within the next month. And what about Ben Kindle? He's already passed the 9-game mark. He's playing well in Pittsburgh. They're bringing him along slowly but surely. It's going to be interesting decisions because obviously if all these guys went to the Canadian team, I mean, just give them the gold medal.
Yeah.
But with no Celebrini, no Schaefer, look, it's up in the air. You never know. I mean, Canada doesn't always win because other teams are less disadvantaged by the fact that players in 18 and 19-year-old players play in the NHL. And I think this year, it's only Canadians who are playing in the NHL. I don't see any Americans, nor Swedish, nor Finnish players playing in the NHL at that age. There are some in the American Hockey League, but those in the American Hockey League, like the ones with the Buffalo Sabres, are going to be sent back to their country. Mm-hmm. That's usually how it works. You don't keep a guy in the American Hockey League during the holidays when he can play at the World Juniors.
Exactly. Listen, the season is still very young. A lot of these rookies that we're talking about have only played 15, 16 games. Yeah. So there's plenty of runway, plenty of time for them to tune up and get their game back. And Snake, a few more names that I had jotted down. Yeah. Slight disappointments. Matt Savoy. I don't know how you pronounce it. He's an Anglophone. But
they call it Savoy, but his original name was probably Savoy. Yeah.
2 points in 16 games. Again, another one with the Oilers that we thought, a lot of people thought, hey, maybe, he'll get an opportunity to shine with some elite offensive players. Hasn't happened.
I think Savoy was highly touted when he was in the WHL. Mm-hmm. He played at age 15, although he turned 16 on January 1st. So, he was 1 day. He missed the cutoff date by 1 day because in junior hockey, the cutoff date is December 31st, whereas in the NHL, it's September 15th for the draft. But I think he was very promising at first as a small skill forward. Another one of those that the Buffalo Sabres drafted. But I do think that they traded him at the right time. And they also, one of the few good moves by Kevin Adams was getting Ryan
McLeod.
Ryan McLeod is exactly the type of player that you need in the playoffs if they ever reach the playoffs with, during his career. But this is the kind of player that you want. I think the Edmonton Oilers, by losing McLeod, by losing Dylan Holloway and Philip Broberg, they really, really regressed and didn't get much in return. And I understand why they did it. McLeod was making more money. They had salary cap issues. They traded, so that's why they traded Savoie, who was cheaper, who was showing promise. But I thought that Savoie at some point kind of plateaued in junior hockey. I was not like super impressed as much as I was when he was 15 or 16 years old. And this happened. So we have to be careful with these prospects now that we see for 27, 2028 that we're raving over. Look at Gavin McKenna. And I mean, I'm not the only one talking about this. I mean, if you read Scott Wheeler in The Athletic, I think this morning or this weekend, he's talking about McKenna, how scouts, they still like him. He makes spectacular plays, but there are scouts who don't like his lack of effort at times. And Gavin McKenna, I mean, last year, 2 years ago, he was a generational player.
Yep.
So we have to be careful with this, but Savoy, I think, is disappointment. Yeah. Do you have others on your list of
two more really quickly?
Yeah.
I mean,
sure.
I expected a bit more from these players. The first one I'll say is Axel Sandin Pellikka from the Detroit Red Wings, 4 points in 16 games. Now, I didn't expect them to supplant Moritz Seider, from those first pairing duties or offensive opportunities. But maybe, he was touted as this next, offensive, smaller, skilled defenseman. Maybe we're just accustomed to seeing Lane Hudson. Last year was just ripping it up. I think that the perspective might be skewed in that regard. But 4 points in 16 games from an offensive defenseman, I could consider that a bit of a disappointment.
Yeah, I would have expected maybe a few points more, but I don't think I think he's playing well. He's just a rookie adapting to the NHL. So perhaps as of now, he could be considered a slightly, a minor disappointment. But I don't have a problem with this guy. He's going to be a big point producer. We don't know because points are often the result of opportunities. But
the other guy now, who I don't think is having a bad season in any way, but is disappointing for me because I hold him in such high regard. I think this player is an amazing blend of skill and grit, that being Ryan Leonard of the Washington Capitals, who many people, including myself, projected to be a top 3 Calder candidate. Now, 7 points in 15 games as a rookie is great. He's doing fine. It's just the fact that I expected him to be in that conversation by now, right? I expected it to be a Demidov, Schaefer.
No, I remember.
He's not in that talk.
You see, the way you saw Ryan Leonard is the way I saw Sam Renzel. And I think you guys expected a little bit too much offensively from Ryan Leonard. I don't think he's that gifted of an offensive player, although I saw him live last year. He was 19 years old, and he was dominant. But I always wonder if this could translate well to the NHL in terms of being a big point producer. But I think he's a perfect complement on a skill line. So so far, I mean, for those who had high expectations, yes, he could be a minor disappointment. Personally, I think that 7 points in 15 games, I didn't think he would get there. So we all have different expectations for players. I've never been a fan of his offensive game. So I think, look, I think he's fine. I think he's okay. He's a 20-year-old guy. Going to be a good player.
He's not having a bad season by any stretch of the imagination. He is having a good season. For me, I'm really big on Ryan Leonard. He was the guy I wanted the Habs to draft in 23. They went with Reinbacher. I have no gripes against that, and we're going to talk about him, by the way. But I'm just a big fan of what Ryan Leonard can do. I think he's got an NHL caliber game. Saw him in the World Juniors. He was just incredible. Boston College. We know what he did there. So, yeah, great player. Okay, now, transitioning back to the Montreal Canadiens. We digressed a little bit towards the Calder race, but we're back on the Habs. And, Snake, it's time to talk a little bit Laval Rocket, okay? There's 3 players that I want to highlight here. The first being the guy that a lot of people have been saying the Habs should call up. They should call this guy up because he's ripping it up. And to be fair, he is. Jared Davidson is tied for first in goals in the entire AHL. He's got 9 this year, right? Now, when we talk about the call-up, okay, there are no injuries at the moment, which means if the Habs were to call him up, they would have to bump a guy down. No, I mean, a lot of Habs fans have soured quickly on Joe Veleno. He's just been okay. He's not doing much. But do you think it's too early or a good time to call up Jared Davidson, or do you let him cook in the AHL and keep scoring goals?
Look, the thing with Davidson is that he's already a 23-year-old forward playing in the AHL. So time is running out. I mean, his first contract is running out, obviously. So he's going to be he's going to have to go through waivers, I think, next year. This is the kind of guy, for over the last couple of years, I always wondered if he was an NHLer or not. Because he did show many good. I wouldn't say more than flashes in the AHL. He's been good. Yeah. He's been good with Laval so far. But he's kind of the forgotten prospect because we talked a lot about Owen Beck and Joshua Roy and Philippe Michard and even Sean Farrell, Florian Jackai. Davidson, here and there, I'll get a question. What about Davidson? What do you think? I think this is the type of guy, before the end of his first contract, I think he does deserve a call-up. And that time will come. If he keeps performing like he is right now, I think that time will come. And that'll be his opportunity, whether it be like 10 games or 20 games, I don't know, to show that he deserves not necessarily a second contract, but to stay with the team next year. Because he could be lost to waivers. But I know. There's lots of Davidsons out there. Teams will not bother. There are very few waiver claims when you think about it at the end of the day. And they're mostly defensemen or goalies. You saw Kendon Primo going back and forth this year.
He's back in Carolina now.
Yeah, exactly. So I do think that he deserves a chance. I don't want his first contract to run out without him having had a chance.
He deserves it, yeah.
He deserves it. That time will come. There will be injuries. I hope he's the first call-up because, we've seen Beck. We've seen Joshua Roy. Okay, let's move on now maybe to another bunch of players that we can call up. Of course, it's hard. When you get called up, you play on the fourth line usually. You get 8-10 minutes. You don't have much leeway. But look, if Davidson belongs to the NHL, he has to show it. He has to prove it. And I think now is the time. And, who knows? Sometimes there are prospects that you include with a draft pick when you get a player. And they're not necessarily top prospects. But it could have some value as a throw-in, I would say. And that's what you always have to keep in mind. And yeah, I for some reason I like the player. I like watching him play.
Yeah, listen, he's got a I wouldn't call it exactly an NHL translatable style, but he has NHL qualities to him, right? He plays a very gritty, intense game, and he's a great goal scorer. Like his shot is excellent. You know what I mean? So of course, there's aspects that need some refining, fine tuning, but. You know what? Right now, if he's not the first call-up, I don't know why he wouldn't be. And he's the kind of guy I think could do well in a bottom six role, right?
More than Sean Farrell, let's say. More than Sean Farrell, yeah.
Exactly. Like take Joshua Roy, for example, who is more so of an offensive top six kind of player who needs to play on an offensive line, right? Jared Davidson can play wing and center. And can play, 8 to 10 minutes a game and contribute doing that. So, you know what? It's very encouraging when you see that kind of depth in the prospect chart doing so well. nothing but good things there about Jared Davidson. And I think that call-up is going to happen sooner than we think.
The only thing that I'm wondering is that he's been there for 3 years. The organization knows him. And, Kent Hughes so far, he's proven that he knows what he's doing. I mean, no game is perfect, but he knows what he's doing. They never called him up. And it's been a few years now, and they never called him up. So I don't know. Maybe they don't see anything in this guy. Who knows? But look, like you say, first call up, give him a chance. Take a flyer on him. Yeah,
exactly. Now, Snake, the next guy that we want to talk about is the guy that we were all keeping an eye on for the Rocket this year. Jacob Fowler is having himself a year. Okay, 5-2, 2 shutouts in 7 games, 2 shutouts. Okay, he's got a 229 goals against, a 914 save percentage for his first full pro season. What have you seen from Fowler? Has he shown you that, he is in control and that what we saw in Boston College was not a fluke?
No, and he only had 1 bad game so far this year, which is normal. And I like the fact that his save percentage is 914 because that is actually sustainable.
Yeah.
Because when a guy goes on a tear and he's at 953, it's not going to last. Mm-hmm. But at 914, you've shown that it kind of stabilized, and what you've seen from Fowler so far is probably what you can expect. Probably like 5 or 6 good games, 1 bad games, 4 or 6 good games, 1 bad games, which is excellent for a goalie. Mm-hmm. Look, he's just getting ready to take over the Habs net. I mean, it is what it is. I know there's a step. I know we have to be careful with goalie prospects, but every level, Jacob Fowler has always improved and shown that he was good. Yeah. Now, what's next? A season where he plays maybe 25 games for the Habs. I wouldn't bring him right away as the number 1 guy because he's still very young. He's 21. But eventually 20, 25 games, maybe a call-up by the end of the year, depending on the Habs situation. Let's say the Habs are assured of a playoff spot in March, let's call it. Well, why not give him a couple of games in early April? Then he goes back to the Rocket. The Rocket can go very far in the playoffs. So again this year. So I think the net is in good hands for the Habs.
That's a fact right there. I mean, we mentioned Jakub Dobeš at the start of the show, and we're going to mention another goalie coming up here soon. That's doing quite well. Another Habs prospect. But before we leave the Rocket now, the third guy, is David Reinbacher. Mm-hmm. Made his return finally from injury. Yeah. 4 games played, 2 assists in those games. The first was a bit tougher for him, getting his legs in, getting the rust off. But I mean, Snake, correct me if I'm wrong. He's turned it around pretty quickly.
Yeah, he's been good this weekend. He's been good. Mm-hmm. Look, I think what we have to accept or realize with Reinbacher, although it was pretty much that from the start, is that he's no Lane Hudson. Okay, this is not going to be a high point producer. No. This is not going to be a number 1 power play guy in the NHL, but probably a solid top 4 defenseman. Now, I think he has a very strong presence on the ice. He's a big guy, and he skates rather well, I would say. Up the ice, but again, his puck control is not elite. I can't even say it's excellent. So this is the type of guy that at some point just pass it to a forward. Okay, get it out of the zone because you're good at it, and pass it to a forward. And I think that's what he's shown this weekend. I think he'll get his points because he can make plays. But let's say he's a 30 to 40 point guy in the NHL without any power play time, and he plays 20, 22 minutes on the top 4, solid 20, 22 minutes, minute muncher, 30 to 40 points. I think it would be fantastic because I know he was a top 5 pick. I know we expect more of top 5 picks. I do expect a lot from top 5 picks, but you have to look at who was taken after him, especially defensemen.
It's
So
Simishev,
would you prefer
Andy
Simishev?
Pellikka, and Willander.
Simishev is stay at home. He's maybe a top 4 guy, maybe, but he's a number 4 or number 5. Very, very much stay at home. I mean, for a number 6 pick, that's very high for a stay at home defenseman. Like you mentioned, Pellikka, I like sending Pellikka. I think he's ahead of Reinbacher right now.
Mm-hmm.
But did the Habs need another Sendin Pellikka?
No.
So, look, we're all on a wait and see mode with Reinbacher. We're just hoping that he stays healthy and that he plays a full season. And then once he's played a full season, look, he's going to get games in Montreal, I'm sure. If he doesn't get injured by the end of the year, he's going to get games in Montreal.
Yeah.
So let's look, the Habs are good now. So imagine a few years ago when Habs had the cupboard was like empty.
Oh,
the expectations we would have on David Reinbacher right now.
Monumental.
It would be like, Reinbacher, he needs to be a top 2 guy. And honestly, I thought he had the potential to be a number 2 during his draft year.
Mm-hmm.
But then I wouldn't say it derailed, but he didn't have a good season because there was a lot of turmoil on his team in Switzerland. And then he got injured. Let's wait and see. I mean, I'm willing to be, when a guy is injured, I'm willing to be patient for a while. But at some point, if he gets injured over and over and over and over, then you can call him injury prone, and he's not useful to the team. So even if he's very, very good, you say, okay, well, you're just playing 20 games a year or 30 games a year. So, but let's see. I like his weekend games in Laval.
That's it. For now, I'll just call him unlucky. But like you say, Snake, if there's a pattern that arises, that's when the alarm bells start to ring. But he needs to stay healthy this year, and I want to see him in Laval for the majority of the season. Again, if he earns a call-up, he's earned it, and I'm sure he'll do well with it. But you look at the depth on the blue line for the Habs. I mean, Lane Hudson, we know, Noah Dobson, Caden Gooley, Alexandre Carrier, Mike Matheson, right? Then you have Arbor Jacki, Jaden Struble. He's going to have a spot on the team, but don't be surprised if it's minimized in a sense, right? It might not be a top 2 role. It might be, a top 4, 20, 22 minutes, no power play, PK, right? Because Reinbacher is all about intangibles. That's really what this player is all about, okay? Smooth skating, big, smart defenseman, all right? He's no Lane Hudson. There's very few like Lane Hudson. So I think Habs fans kind of need to get that image out of their heads and accept the kind of player that Reinbacher is and how useful he can be to a contending team. Like when the Habs are ready to go for a playoff run, he'll be very, very useful. I'm willing to put money on it. Like this guy has the intangibles to succeed.
Well, one last thing about Reinbacher is that if you look at the Habs defense right now, there are 2 guys that are pretty much, carved in stone, Hudson and Dobson for the next few years, for sure.
Yeah.
Then, Gooley, yes, he's under contract for a long time, but Gooley is often injured. Okay, so can we really count on him? That's one thing. But he's under contract. Mm-hmm. Madison, I would say, will probably be re-signed. But for now, he's not. So we don't know.
Yeah.
Alexandre Carrier, I think his contract ends next year. Will he be re-signed? It's possible. You could be a good third pairing guy. But again, we don't know. Struble and Jacki, it's fine, but you always want to improve your team.
Of course.
So if Reinbacher can jump ahead of these guys,
which he will,
the Habs will be even better.
If
Struble becomes a number 7, then the Habs are better. Mm-hmm. Although he does the job right now. But you always want to improve. So that's my take. So the Habs defense, it seems like it's really, really set for the next 5, 6, 7 years, but you never know, because a few years ago we were talking about Justin Barron. We were talking about Logan Mailloux. We were talking even Matthias Norlinder, So Josh Brook, you remember? So
oh boy,
but these guys were seen as sometimes fans, they go on Twitter and they do all their future Habs roster and the pairings, the defensive pairings. I could pull out pairings where they had Brooke and Norland there, and Mayu and Barron. It didn't happen. All four are gone. So I think the crop right now is obviously better than these guys. But at the time, you can't really look at a prospects list and say those 6 prospects are going to be our top 6 defensemen in 5 years. Not necessarily.
Well, that's fair.
But they're fine. Whoa. They're fine. They're doing fine.
Yeah. We'll keep an eye on Reinbacher. And folks, remember, if you want more information on the Laval Rocket, we do have a podcast for you, okay? It's the Sick Podcast en mode Rocket with Vincent Denuy and Cédric Blondin, who are your caller commentary for the Laval Rocket at the Sick Podcast. Do go check them out. You won't regret it. They had Xavier Simoneau on recently, and that was a great interview. I highly recommend it. Snake, a few more prospects now outside of the organization that I'd like to talk about. And the first one being the goaltender in question that I teased earlier. He's a 5th-round pick for the Montreal Canadiens in 2025. That being Alexis Cournoyer, playing right now for Cornell University. Listen to these statistics now. Only 3 games, right? But he's 2-1. He's got a 135 goals against and a 956 save percentage. Now, we talked about how that's unsustainable. And of course, it's going to go down. But a good start for him so far.
Yeah, I still know Cournoyer is a great story because he didn't show up in junior hockey before January of 2025. He was playing in a junior A league in the Maritimes. He was 19 years old. He had not been drafted. He was not under anybody's radar. And then he showed up with the Cape Breton Eagles, and he was fantastic. Yeah. And then the Habs drafted him. And I think he was ranked 16 amongst goalies by Central Scouting, but that was the final ranking. In September, no one knew who he was at Central Scouting, probably. So this guy, he signed with Cornell University. Cornell University, obviously, they play a very tight style of hockey. They are ranked 17th in the country right now. So they're like on the bubble to make the NCAA tournament at the end of the year, which is the top 16 teams. I can't say this is a very exciting team to watch in terms of forward prospects. It's never been, but it's good caliber hockey. And maybe Cournoyer can be a little bit advantage. He can have a little bit of an advantage because he doesn't play on a run and gun type of team, but I like his technique, the classic butterfly goalie. I like the fact that he covers his angles very well. He doesn't give up many bad goals. He's also very big in front of his net, 6'4", so you can't miss him. Mm-hmm. And I like also his footwork from right to left. And I saw a play recently where basically he's telling his defenseman, signing with his stick, just making waving with his stick. He's telling his defenseman to cover this guy or so. And then while he's doing this, the guy passes to another guy on the opponent team, and the guy's in the slot. And Cournoyer had the time to move back into position to stop that shot, although he was waving at the defenseman 1 second before. So that means he's quick. He's quick. So now, like every goalie, is he going to make the NHL? I don't know. But for a 20-year-old guy in the NCAA doing that well, I think it's good. I always say 5th round. If you have no one else on your list, if you don't have any like wild cards or hidden gems,
take a swing.
Or some 5'6" guy, 5'6" guy who scored 50 goals. If you're just going to draft a big guy who's going to be a fixture on your 4th line in Laval, get a goalie.
Yeah.
Get a goalie, and that's what the Habs are doing. They are getting goalies. We talked about Volokin last week or 2 weeks ago. Mm-hmm. There's Cournoyer now.
Radkov,
who's been okay with Boisvert. So, look, I know it could be Fowler and DeBesch forever, for 10 years, but it doesn't matter. You have these goalies. I'm not saying they are worth a lot on the trade market because there's one general manager who told Mathias Brunet a few years ago, He said, unless you're like Vasilevsky or Askarov, if you haven't played in the NHL, goalies are not worth much on the trade market. If you haven't played an AHL goalie, unless he's a top prospect, doesn't have much value. But look, they're insurance policies, and you can stack them everywhere. A ECHL, two in the AHL, two in the ECHL. You can have some in Europe. You can have some in college. You can have 7-8 goalies in your system. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's going to be fun to watch, and yeah, the Habs cupboard in net is pretty jammed. We'll say pretty jammed. Now, Snake, two big boys. Okay, the two prospects that a lot of people have interest towards. Obviously, Alexander Zurofsky being one, and we've talked at great lengths about him on this show, and we're going to keep doing that because guess what? He keeps performing.
Oh, yeah.
It's 15 points in 15 games with UFA, and he's playing right now as we're recording. I don't know if he's doing anything, but he's playing yet again at center. Important to note. And this weekend, this past week, he was at the Russia U20 Future Cup tournament, where the Russia U20 team won the tournament. And I think I don't know how many points he put up. Like, it was ridiculous. He was at almost at a 3-point per game pace. It was just unreal. I mean, at this point, the consistency,
it's there. It's there.
He's legit. Like, I think we could say it. He's legit.
Yeah, and the coaches make him play, except for a couple of games. The coaches make him play, which they usually don't with young players. I think this guy who's going to go straight to the NHL once he gets stronger physically.
Yeah.
Is he going to play center? I think that's the question. I think Michael Hage, being a little bit older, being 2 years older, will get first shot at 2C. And then do you want to have Hage and Zurofsky as number 2, number 3, number 3, number 2 centers? I mean, that would be a very, very strong line. But at the same time, do you prefer having them on your top 6 and pack up your top six with Hage, Zurofsky, Demidov, and Suzuki, Caulfield, Slavkovsky? That's one option. You can also bring one of these guys as a 3C, especially at the beginning of their career, and then you play them with maybe Bolduc and maybe another guy, another winger. Who knows? New Hook, Kirby Doc, whatever. And but Hage will get first shot. I think he will play games by the end of the year once Michigan is eliminated. And by the way, I'm going to be in Boston at the weekend of the 28th of November. 2 games, Michigan against Harvard. I need to talk about that following Monday because Michigan is loaded with prospects. Loaded, not just Michael Hage. They are loaded. So it's going to be a good opportunity to see him in person because, on video, it's good. You can see a lot, but I want to see the intensity level because this is something that sometimes is mentioned as perhaps something lacking in his game, intensity level. I want to see him go in traffic. I want to see him go, to the slot more, not stay in the periphery, which Zurofsky, that's not a problem. Zurofsky is all over the ice.
Yeah, he goes in. But Snake, on Michael Hage now, 17 points in 12 games. People look at that. It's like, wow, he's having a heck of a year. And you know what? He is. But he has been playing recently on the wing. Yeah. And the coach explains that as being because due to chemistry that he has with William Horkoff, Penguins prospect, who is a center. So they're like, okay, well, these two have chemistry. Let's just put Hage on the wing. Do you think, could that be a little bit of a concern in a sense for his future down the middle?
Look, you always want your prospects to play the position that you envision them to play in the NHL. So obviously the Habs, if they had control over Michigan, they would probably play him at center because they see him as a center first and foremost. But they can't. Okay, players, when they go to college, you're at the mercy of what the college coach does with them. That's how it works. Now, Horkoff has been probably my biggest surprise in college hockey this year. He was a late first-round pick. I wasn't sure if he had much offense in him, but he's very, very good. So looking forward to see him in person too. But getting back to Hage, I don't think it's a problem. Things can change. He could go back to center maybe in January or February if things don't work out. Look, again, if he's a winger, well, he's a winger. What can you do? Most centermen end up being wingers in the NHL.
That's true. Yeah.
Most centermen, but you draft centermen to get wingers more than you draft wingers to become centermen.
Precisely.
So, look, like I say, I would prefer. By the way, 17 points in 12 games. I don't want to rain on the parade, but there were 7 points in 2 games against Mercyhurst at the end of the year, which to me don't count. So it's 10 points in 10 games. On a loaded team like Michigan, it's fine because he's not the only guy. He's not necessarily the go-to guy that we rely on in every situation because they have a stacked team. So looking forward to seeing him in 2-3 weeks and against Harvard.
Absolutely. Folks, you know what to do, eh? If you want to hear Snake Scouting Report on Michael Hage, you got to tap in. You got to lock in here with us. Subscribe to the Sick Podcast, trust the process. Turn on that notification bell so you don't miss whenever we upload that new episode. Speaking of, now, it's time to thank the partners that make this show possible. And I want to start off with a big thank you, of course, to our friends over at Cheapest T-Shirts. It's very simple, folks. If you're looking for the cheapest prices on wholesale apparel in Canada, you will find them at cheapesttshirts.ca. They are proudly Canadian and trusted by thousands of customers from coast to coast. They deliver unbeatable value every day. You'll always get the cheapest prices plus same-day shipping and even next-day delivery, so your order arrives fast. Enjoy free shipping on larger orders and a simple, easy-to-use website that makes online ordering a breeze. Get the cheapest deals in Canada today at cheapesttshirts.ca. And of course, don't select the bust with Betway and get a deposit matchup bonus up to $300 on your first deposit. Scan the QR code on the screen or click on the link in the details section to create an account and redeem your welcome offer. The offer is only available for new customers. Terms and conditions apply. The offer is not available in Ontario, and you must be 18 years or older. Please play responsibly. Skipped it last week, so I think I have to do it this week. Let's go for a little fantasy report. Snake, we need your assistance for this one. We're going to play another little game. This one's called Hold or Sell.
Okay.
We're focused in on defensemen this year. I have 4 defensemen who have disappointed fantasy-wise, okay? Compared to their production last year or compared to expectations for this year, they've been underwhelming. So I'm going to ask you if a manager, a fantasy manager has that player on their team, should they hold that player or try to sell it?
Okay.
I'll start off with the big fish. Quinn Hughes.
Mm-hmm.
Average 6.05 fantasy points per game, which for a defenseman is considered good. For my threshold, 6 fantasy points per game is good. But Quinn Hughes, right? I mean, he's supposed to be top 3, top 5. Last season, he averaged 7.97 fantasy points per game. That's a fairly significant drop-off. Now, Vancouver's a bit of a weird team.
Oh, yeah.
Okay? Is it only just because he's suffering from, the shortcomings of his teammates? Or should it be time to sell Quinn Hughes?
Look, it's 20% into the season. Quinn Hughes is Quinn Hughes. The points will come, I think. I know players can have a down year in terms of points, not necessarily in their performance, but point getting is sometimes a little bit random, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
I mean,
it comes in waves.
It comes in waves, and all players at some point have one bad season point-wise, vis-a-vis the expectations we have, and then it goes back up. But look, 20% into the season, he's getting a lot of ice time, even though Vancouver is not a great team. Hold.
I agree. Do not sell Quinn Hughes. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm going to go over to his brother in the New Jersey Devils, Luke Hughes. Mm-hmm. Luke Hughes has never been much of a fantasy producer.
No.
Excellent defenseman on an NHL team. And that's the weird part about fantasy is that you have these great defensemen that are just not that valuable in fantasy. Last few years, it was Miro Heiskanen, right? He just wasn't really doing much fantasy-wise. This year, however, is really good. Luke Hughes this year has averaged 3.89 fantasy points per game. That's really not good. Now, last year was averaging 4.77. Not great either. But again, I think we expected a bit more out of him. Now, I warned viewers at the beginning of the season, remember, maybe it's, before the season, try to sell him off. And if you did, you're welcome. But if you didn't, let's ask the question again. Now, Dougie Hamilton's out for a week. The first power play is Luke Hughes' to lose at this point, right? And they've been kind of switching in and out throughout the season. Is he a hold or a sell?
I love you, Luke Hughes, but I realize that Dougie Hamilton for now is ahead of him in terms of opportunities. Simon Nemeth has 8 points, by the way. A guy that some people had written off last year when he was sent back to the American Hockey League. Look, for a keeper's pool, obviously you do keep Luke Hughes. For this year, depending on what you have, what you can get for, because every pool is different with different rules and different contestants, I'm leaning more on the sell than hold.
Yeah. What's confusing about him is that the New Jersey Devils are one of the best teams in the league. They're scoring goals. I mean, they're playing amazing hockey. So you'd think that he'd, kind of benefit from that, but it hasn't been the case, which is why I lean with you there. I think sell on the name value, try to get some sort of value instead of dropping him for nothing. Next up, Shea Theodore of the Vegas Golden Knights, averaging 4.44 fantasy points per game. No bueno. Last year was averaging 6.19. Much better. Now he's first power play on the Vegas Golden Knights with Mark Stone's injury. Vegas is a great team. Again, should benefit from that scoring, but hasn't. Are we holding or are we selling?
For the same reasons as Luke Hughes, although Theodore is not Luke Hughes, Quinn Hughes. For the same reasons as Quinn Hughes, hold. He's no Quinn Hughes, but I mean, he's been their top guy in Vegas for a while. Vegas is a great offensive team. I think the points will come.
It's going to come. In the similar vein here, Snake, another guy who's on the first power play of a very good team who, you know what, they are lacking some key players. Seth Jones of the Florida Panthers. Now, obviously, there's no Barkov, there's no Tkachuk. This year, he's averaging 4.06 fantasy points per game. Poo-poo. Last year, even on the Chicago Blackhawks, averaging 6.47 fantasy points per game. Really good. Now, he's got the first power play, but again, they don't have Barkov, they don't have Tkachuk. They still have Marchand, who's playing really well. Sam Reinhart, Sam Bennett, Hage, Luosterainen. It's still a really good team. Just hasn't been happening for him.
Look, I've never been high on Seth Jones for fantasy teams. So I never saw I didn't think he could generate enough offense to be an elite defenseman, although he was perceived at first as a possible elite defenseman because of his size and his skating, and he's a big presence on the ice. Look, for fantasy, sell him. Good stuff.
All right, it is now time to go digging in the mailbag. All right, our question today comes from Rick. Once again, shout out to Rick with the great questions. He's asking, do you think that the NCAA will replace the AHL as the most advanced developmental league of hockey prospects over the next decade, now that the NCAA has lifted restrictions on Canadian prospects, and that shift with the NHL will support that cause? It should not diminish the importance of the AHL, just lessen the time frame for players' growth, as it seems that the league is getting more youth-oriented, especially with those players with an NCAA background. Very interesting question.
It's very, very interesting with all these changes coming up, and the 19-year-old players who some of them will be eligible to play in the WHL, in the AHL next year. Just a reminder to our listeners, what happens is that next year, teams will be allowed to send one 19-year-old player to the AHL on their roster. Not two, just one. If they were drafted out of the CHL.
Yeah,
So
that's right.
if one guy is drafted out of Europe, let's say for instance that the Habs want to send Zorowski next year to the HL, he will not count as the 19-year-old guy.
Mm-hmm.
It would have to be a guy drafted from junior hockey this season. So I don't know if you understood the question the way I understood it, but I feel that Rick is wondering if players will develop more in the NCAA than in the AHL when they're like 19 or 20 or 21 years old. That's the way I understood it. Is that the way you understood it?
So sort of similarly, in a sense that maybe teams could let their college players marinate a little longer.
Yeah, exactly. That's the way I got it. Yeah.
And on top of that, perhaps maybe even increasing their draft value, right? So you see NCAA players, you see, at a certain time, you'll have a good amount of, data to base yourself off of. Maybe scouts and teams could hold NCAA players to a higher standard or higher regard. That's kind of how I see the question. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I think things will stay the same. I don't see a 20-year. Let's take Ryan Leonard, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Ryan Leonard was NHL ready, but let's take guys who will be like Gabe Perreault. Okay, Gabe Perreault was just called back by the Rangers.
Yeah, good one.
Gabe Perreault played 2 years in college, and at the age of 20, he signed his contract, and they sent him to the American Hockey League. He did very well during his stint. Now he was called up. Now, would a team want a guy like Perreault to stay one more year in the NCAA instead of going to the AHL and then bring him directly to the NHL at 21 instead of having his development done at the AHL level? I don't think this is going to change. I think teams will want players to turn pro when they deem them ready to turn pro. So if the Rangers thought that Perreault was ready, well, then you send him to Hartford. I don't think they would want him to stay necessarily in the NCAA. Some teams have done it. Some players want to stay also. You have no control over this.
Yeah.
Some players want to stay. But Jacob Fowler played his 20-year-old season in Boston College. I think it was mutual. They both wanted him to stay. He could have signed and played with the Rocket. No, he stayed in Boston College. So that's fine. That's fine. I think nothing is going to change in that sense. The rule will affect more the development of players between the age of 16 and 19.
Yeah.
Okay. Guys at 16 and 17 might take a dip into the CHL waters and then go to college. But then once they're drafted, when they're ready, they're ready. Ryan Leonard, he went to the NHL. Gabe Perreault went to the AHL. They called him up when they thought he was ready. So I honestly, short answer is nothing will change in that sense. Changes will occur at other steps of a player's development. Not once they're in the NCAA.
And Snake, to back up your point here, and you mentioned it when we were talking about Michael Hage, a lot of teams, maybe not the main reason, but one of the reasons why they like to bring in these players into the organization is that they have control over them, right? When they're in the NCAA, you can't really do anything, right? They're at the mercy of the coach, at the mercy of the team. When you bring them over to the AHL or to the NHL, you can actually control the development of that player. So that's another factor that goes into your reasoning there. Yeah.
Yeah, a guy like Hage, let's say the Habs didn't think he was ready for Laval this year. He's 19 years old. Well, you don't send him to the East Coast League. First of all, I don't think the player will want to, and I don't think it's necessarily a good idea. No. Better stay in college because he's playing with talented guys. Like you name Will Horkoff. There's TJ Hughes. There's tons of good guys on Michigan. But there's no league in between. There's nothing in between the AHL and the NCAA where sometimes you would feel, I would like to have control over his development, but I think it's too early for Laval. Okay, let's keep him in the NCAA. But once a guy, because remember, junior players, once they end career in junior hockey. Most of them at age 19. You know, there are some 20-year-old players, but there's only 3 per teams. He's eligible for the American Hockey League. Joshua Roy, when he finished his junior career in Sherbrooke, he came to the American Hockey. Owen Beck did the same thing. Philip Michard did the same thing once they were done with junior hockey. So I think with college, you have to see it the same way. Michael Hage, instead of playing junior hockey in Canada, he decided to play his 18 and 19-year-old seasons in the NCAA. Now at 20, turn pro like every other junior player does, especially top prospects. I don't see the advantage, except for a goalie maybe. I don't see the advantage to marinate a third season in the NCAA. As good as the NCAA is, at some point you're 20 years old.
Time to move on.
Yeah, time to move on. Look, Gabe Perreault moved on. He played. They sent him back. He played well in Hartford. They called him up. Is he going to stay for good? I don't know. But the point is, he was at least a very good AHL player at age 20. Now it's time for him to show more. But I foresee something similar. Although I think Hage, he will get a few games at the end of the year. Now, will they keep him? Will they send him back? I think he's going to get every chance to make the Habs roster next September.
100%. Well, Rick, I hope we answered your question adequately. And people, as always, I want to remind you that you can send in your questions in the YouTube comments. We pick one every show and we answer it the next one. So send in your questions. And listen, we haven't picked our topic for Thursday yet. So we've done it before. You can send in your topics in the comment section. We might just take you up on that. Snake, anything to add before we get out of here?
No, I guess I'll see you Thursday.
Exactly. We will be back on Thursday. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you turn on the notification bell so you are notified when we do upload our next show. Thank you to Sammy and Rosa back at Master Control. He's Simon the Snake Bavaya. I'm producer Shayne. This has been another edition of the Sick Podcast. Trust the process. We'll see you Thursday.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast, Trust the Process on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.